The night was quiet, too quiet. David sat in his small wooden cabin at the edge of the forest. The old clock ticked on the wall, and the fire in the stove burned low. He had chosen this life, away from the noise of the city, away from people. Out here, only the sound of the wind and the cries of owls kept him company. He liked it that way. But that night, something was wrong. The silence was heavy, pressing against his ears. Even the forest outside seemed to be holding its breath. Then, knock, 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 the sound echoed through the cabin. David froze. Who could be out here at this hour? His nearest neighbor lived 10 miles away. He hadn't seen a stranger in weeks. His hand instinctively reached for the hunting rifle leaning against the wall. Slowly, carefully, he walked toward the door. The knocking came again. Softer this time, almost weak. He pulled the door open just a crack, enough to peek outside. What he saw made his heart skip. A figure stood in the cold, wrapped in shadows. The rain had soaked her, her silver hair clinging to her face, her skin. It glowed faintly under the moonlight, not like any human skin he had ever seen. Her eyes bright, sharp, almost too large, locked onto his. She looked fragile, trembling, yet strangely beautiful. "Please," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Let me in." David gripped the door tighter. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice low. She swayed on her feet, as if about to collapse. "I have nowhere else to go. Let me stay, human, and I'll give you what no woman ever could." The words hit him like a thunderclap. What did she mean? David's mind raced. She wasn't normal. That much was clear. Her clothes were torn, almost like they had been burned. The marks on her arms looked strange, like glowing veins. She wasn't from here. Not from Earth. He should shut the door. He should walk away. But he couldn't. Something in her eyes, fear, desperation, stopped him. Another gust of wind blew, cold and sharp, making her shiver. She hugged herself tightly, her lips pale from the chill. David cursed under his breath and opened the door. Wider. "Fine. Get inside, quickly." She stumbled in, almost falling, and he caught her arm to steady her. Her skin was warm, too warm, like fire beneath the surface. The moment the door closed, the storm outside seemed louder. The rain beat against the roof. David guided her toward the chair near the fire. She sank into it, sighing with relief, her strange eyes watching the flames dance. "Who are you?" David asked again, standing over her. She looked up at him, and for the first time, he noticed the small scars along her jawline. Not scars from knives or bullets. They looked surgical. "My name doesn't matter," she said softly. "I only ask you for one thing, shelter, just for tonight." David narrowed his eyes. "People don't come here. Not in the middle of the night. Not in the middle of a storm. So why are you here? What are you running from?" Her lips parted, but no words came out. Instead, her eyes darted to the door, as if she expected someone or something to burst through at any moment. Then she whispered, "If they find me, they'll kill me." A chill ran down David's spine. "Who?" he asked, but she only shook her head, curling closer to the fire. David watched her carefully. Everything about her screamed danger, yet he couldn't throw her out. He poured her a cup of hot tea and placed it in her hands. She looked at it curiously, then brought it to her lips. As she drank, David studied her. She was not human. That much he knew. Her ears were slightly pointed, her pupils too sharp, and yet she looked more human than alien. A strange mix of both. Finally, she set the cup down. Her voice was stronger now. "You saved me tonight. For that, I will not lie to you. I am not from your world. I came here because I had no choice. My people." She hesitated, her throat tight. "They want me dead." David frowned. "Why?" Her gaze burned into his. "Because I know things no woman, no human could ever give you. Knowledge, secrets, power. And that is why they hunt me." The fire crackled between them. David's grip tightened on his rifle. He didn't know whether to believe her or not. But one thing was clear, his quiet life was over. Outside, through the storm, he thought he heard something. A faint sound. A growl, or maybe footsteps. The woman noticed it too. Her eyes widened. She leaned forward, whispering urgently, "They're coming." David's heart pounded. Whoever or whatever she had brought with her was near. He had to make a choice, trust her, or throw her back out into the storm. And then the knocking came again. Knock, knock, knock. This time, it wasn't weak. It was hard. Angry. David raised his rifle and glanced at the alien woman. She clutched his arm, her eyes pleading. "Please," she whispered again. "Let me stay." The firelight flickered across her face, and David knew his world had just changed forever. The storm howled outside, shaking the old cabin walls. Rain drummed on the roof like 1,000 fists. David stood near the door, rifle in hand, staring at the woman who now sat close to his fire. She looked out of place, like a fragile jewel dropped into rough earth. Her wet silver hair clung to her cheeks, steam rising from her skin as the warmth of the fire touched her. Her strange glowing eyes followed the flames, as if she had never seen fire before. She touched the burning wood with her gaze, almost mesmerized, and whispered, "So simple, yet so alive." David didn't move. He didn't lower his rifle either. "You need to explain," he said firmly. "Who's out there? Why are they after you?" She lifted her face toward him, and for a brief moment, David almost forgot she wasn't human. Her beauty was sharp, unnatural, but her voice carried a weight of pain. "I cannot tell you everything," she said softly, "but I can tell you this: I ran from my own kind. They would use me as a weapon, and I would rather die than be their slave." David frowned. "And you think hiding in my cabin will stop them?" Her lips curved in a sad smile. "No, nothing can stop them forever, but for tonight, I need shelter. You saved me, human. And in return, I'll give you something no woman ever could." The same words again. The words that hooked into David's mind and refused to let go. He studied her carefully. "What do you mean by that?" She leaned closer, her glowing eyes catching the firelight. "Not love, not flesh. Something greater. I hold knowledge, secrets of power. Things your kind can only dream of." David's chest tightened. He had lived alone for years, choosing a quiet life, far away from politics, far away from war. Yet here, in his cabin, sat a creature who spoke of power and secrets, as if offering him the keys to the universe. And outside, something thudded. Against the walls, both of them turned. David raised his rifle. The sound was gone now, swallowed by the storm. But the alien woman's body stiffened. Her sharp ears seemed to catch things David could not hear. "They're close," she whispered. "Closer than you think." David cursed under his breath. "Then you better start talking. Because I don't risk my life for strangers." For a long moment, she said nothing. Her fingers ran lightly across the edge of his wooden table, tracing the grain as if reading it. Finally, she looked back at him. "My name is Lyra," she said. "I was not born on this world. My people, they fear what I know. They fear what I carry inside me. That's why they hunt me." David lowered the rifle just a little. "And what exactly do you carry inside you?" Lyra's hand went to her chest. For a heartbeat, her skin shimmered, and beneath it David thought he saw something like light moving through her veins. A hidden fire, pulsing in rhythm with her heart. "I carry the memory of stars," she whispered, "and the weapon to destroy them." The fire crackled loudly in the silence that followed. David's throat went dry. He didn't know what she truly meant, but one thing was certain: she was dangerous. Yet as he looked at her, shivering slightly in his chair, eyes full of both strength and fear, he also saw something else. She was not lying. Whatever burden she carried, it was real. Outside, another thud. This time, it was closer to the window. David's instincts kicked in. He went to the corner, grabbed the heavy wooden bar, and slid it across the door to lock it. Then he pulled the curtains tight over the glass. The storm might cover their tracks, but if someone was out there, they already knew where she was. Lyra watched him, her lips curving again in that sad smile. "You protect me, even though you do not trust me." "Why?" David loaded his rifle. "Because throwing you out there would make me less than human." Her eyes softened at his words, as if touched by something she had never felt before. Slowly, she stood, stepping closer. She was taller than he expected, her presence filling the small cabin. She leaned close, her voice low, almost a whisper in his ear. "Then I promise you this, so long as I stay under your roof, I will protect you too. And when the night ends, you will understand what no woman of your kind could ever give you." David swallowed hard, but before he could reply, a sharp sound cut through the storm metal, scraping against wood. The front door shook violently. Something was trying to break in. Lyra's eyes flared bright, glowing like molten silver. Her voice, no longer soft, rang with command. "Stay behind me, human. Tonight, they will learn you are not alone." David tightened his grip on the rifle, his heart pounding. He had wanted a quiet life. But now, with a strange alien woman in his home and enemies clawing at his door, he realized the quiet life was over, and part of him, deep inside, felt a thrill he hadn't known in years. The door rattled again. Wood groaned, nails squealed. Someone was forcing its way inside. David pressed his shoulder against the door, rifle raised, while Lyra stood motionless. Her glowing eyes locked on the wooden frame, as if she could see through it. "They won't stop," she whispered. "They've tracked me across the stars. Do you really think a door will hold them back?" David's jaw tightened. "Then what do you suggest? We sit here and wait to die." Her lips curved, faint and strange, almost a smile. "No, I suggest we strike a deal." Before David could reply, the door jolted again, harder this time. Dust falling from the hinges. Lyra stepped closer, her presence both unsettling and magnetic. The firelight shimmered across her skin, and for an instant he swore he could see energy moving inside her veins like liquid light. "If you give me shelter, human," she said softly, "if you let me stay, I will give you something beyond your imagination, not just survival, not just safety. Something no woman of your world could ever give you." David's grip on the rifle tightened. "You keep saying that. But what exactly do you mean?" The cabin shook again. A sharp crack split through the wood. Outside, shadows moved against the storm. Lyra leaned closer, her face inches from his. "I can bind my life to yours. I can give you my knowledge, my strength, my secrets. You will not be an ordinary man again, but once I do this, there is no going back." David blinked, heart pounding. Bind her life to his? What kind of madness was this? "Why me?" he asked sharply. "You could have chosen anyone. Why my door? Why now?" For the first time, her glowing eyes softened. "Because you opened the door." The words hung heavy between them. The door slammed again, this time cracking open just a little. Through the gap, David saw a flash of pale, inhuman skin. A hiss echoed in the storm. Lyra grabbed his wrist, pulling the rifle down. Her grip was iron-strong despite her delicate frame. "Listen to me. You cannot face them with bullets alone. Make the deal with me." Now, David stared at her. Everything about her screamed danger, but everything outside screamed worse. "What kind of deal?" he asked. Her voice lowered, almost a whisper. "I will share my essence with you, my power. It will change you, strengthen you. You'll see the world as I do. But it comes with a cost." David frowned. "What cost?" Her eyes glowed brighter, reflecting the fire and storm. You will never be the same. Once you accept me, there will be no difference between your fate and mine. If I fall, you fall. If I live, you live. The wood splintered as claws scraped against the door. A guttural growl shook the cabin walls. David's throat went dry. He had two choices: face whatever horror was out there with only his rifle, or make a deal with the alien who had stumbled into his life, promising him power and chaining his fate to hers. Decide, Lyra whispered, her voice sharp now. Do you want to be just a man? Or something more? The door cracked wider, and a clawed hand forced through, grabbing at the frame. David fired a shot. The cabin filled with thunder and smoke. The hand recoiled, leaving a smear of strange dark blood on the wood. The shadows outside hissed in anger. Lyra stepped in front of him, her back straight, her voice calm. One shot will not stop them. They are many. They are relentless. If you want to live, if you want me to live, say yes. David's chest heaved. The fire crackled, the storm roared, and the creatures outside circled like wolves. He looked at Lyra, this alien fugitive, this strange woman glowing with secrets, and realized that his decision would change everything. Finally, he lowered the rifle, just slightly. What do I have to do? Lyra's lips curved again. This time in something close to relief. She placed her hand against his chest, right over his heart. Her skin burned warm, almost too hot to bear. Just don't move, she whispered. Her eyes flared with silver fire, and in that moment the cabin seemed to tremble from her presence. Outside, the storm screamed louder. Inside, David felt something impossible, like heat and light pouring into his veins. His knees buckled, his vision blurred. His heart raced as if it was no longer his own. Lyra held him steady, her voice echoing inside his skull. From this moment, our lives are one. What they seek in me, they will now fear in you. David gasped, choking on the rush of power surging through his body. The firelight bent strangely, the world around him sharpening into terrifying clarity. He could hear the footsteps outside, the growls, even the storm's pulse. And then, for the first time, he looked back at Lyra and saw her not as a stranger, not as a fugitive, but as something far more dangerous and far more intimate. The door burst open with a roar of wind and claws. Shadows poured inside. David lifted his rifle again, but this time his hands didn't shake. This time, he felt strength coursing through him that no human had ever known. Lyra's voice echoed beside him, steady and sure. Now they will see what happens when a human accepts the impossible. And as the first attacker lunged, David pulled the trigger, no longer just a man, but something else entirely. Asterisk. The door exploded inward, torn from its hinges. Wind and rain whipped into the cabin, carrying with them the stench of something foul like iron and smoke mixed with decay. Shadows filled the room, tall and hunched, their eyes glowing a sickly green. David raised his rifle, his heart pounding. But something was different now. His senses were sharp, too sharp. He could hear their claws scraping the wooden floor. He could feel their weight pressing against the earth outside. He could even sense the rhythm of their breaths, heavy and savage. Beside him, Lyra stood still, her silver eyes blazing like fire. "Don't be afraid," she whispered. "You are not just human anymore." The first creature lunged. It was taller than David, its limbs twisted and armored with bone-like plates. Its teeth gleamed in the firelight. David fired. The shot rang out like thunder, and this time he didn't just see the bullet fly, he felt it, slicing through air, piercing flesh. The beast shrieked and collapsed, black blood spilling across the wooden floor. Another leapt through the window, shattering glass. David spun, faster than he ever thought possible, and slammed the rifle's butt into its skull. The crack echoed through the cabin, and the creature stumbled back. Lyra's voice cut through the chaos. "Do you feel it? Their weakness?" The bond has sharpened your instincts. Use it. David gritted his teeth. He did feel it. His body moved like it knew the fight before it happened, as if some invisible thread connected him to the enemy's movements. He wasn't just reacting, he was anticipating. But the shadows kept coming. 3, 4, maybe more, circling in the storm outside, their snarls blending with the thunder. The cabin walls shook as claws raked across them. David's chest heaved. How many are there? Lyra's gaze hardened. Too many. They won't stop until I'm dead, or until you are. Her words struck him like ice. He had chosen to bind his life to hers. Her death meant his. His meant hers. There was no escape now. The creatures began to retreat slightly, regrouping at the edges of the storm. Their glowing eyes blinked through the darkness, watching, waiting. David lowered his rifle slightly, sweat dripping from his brow. Why are they waiting? Lyra's lips pressed into a thin line. Because they fear what you are becoming. The fire flickered weakly, shadows dancing across the broken walls. David felt the storm pressing in, the weight of countless eyes watching him through the rain dot, and then, for the first time, Lyra's calm broke. Her hand gripped his arm, tight, almost desperate. You need to understand something, David. I did not choose you only because you opened your door. I chose you because your kind humans carry something my people have long forgotten. David stared at her. And what's that? Willpower, she said. The refusal to break. That is why they fear us together. That is why they will. Keep coming. David swallowed hard. Outside, the shadows shifted again, circling. He could hear them breathing, waiting, testing his resolve. Then suddenly, silence. The storm was still there, the wind howling, the rain pounding. But the creatures, they had gone quiet. Not gone, just waiting in the dark. Lyra's eyes narrowed. This isn't over. They're not retreating. They're summoning something worse. David's grip tightened on the rifle. Worse? What? Could be worse than that? He motioned toward the black blood staining the floor. Her voice lowered, trembling for the first time. The hunters, the ones you fought, were only scouts. But the hunters, they are executioners. If they come, neither of us may survive. The fire crackled, throwing sparks. For a brief moment, David caught something in her eyes, not just fear, but guilt. You knew this would happen, he said, his voice sharp. You brought this fight to my door. Lyra didn't flinch. Yes, and yet, you let me in. That choice has already changed you. You can hate me for it, but you cannot undo it. David opened his mouth to reply, but stopped when he heard it, distant at first, then rising. A howl, not like a wolf's cry. Deeper, angrier, a sound that shook his bones. The shadows outside scattered, as if making way. Lyra's face paled. They're here. David raised his rifle again, but his hands were steady now. Whatever was coming, he wasn't the same man who had sat quietly by his fire hours ago. Something burned inside him, a new strength, a dangerous one. Lyra stepped closer, her voice urgent. If you fight with me, we might survive the night, but you must trust me completely, do you? David looked into her glowing silver eyes. For all her secrets, for all the danger she had brought, there was something undeniable. She had chosen him. And now his life was bound to hers. The howl came again, closer this time. The cabin trembled. David clenched his jaw. Then let's fight. Lyra's lips curved in a fierce smile, her eyes blazing like molten steel. Good, because the night has only just begun. Outside, the storm roared. Inside, man and alien stood side by side, waiting for the true enemy to arrive. And in that fragile moment of silence before the storm broke again, David realized something terrifying. He wasn't just fighting for survival anymore. He was fighting for her. Asterisk. The howl shook the cabin to its bones. It wasn't just sound, it was weight. The air seemed to vibrate with it, heavy and crushing, like the cry of something older and far stronger than the creatures David had already faced. David gripped his rifle tighter, his heart pounding but his hands steady. Ever since Lyra had bound her life to his, every sense had sharpened. He could feel the enemy's presence before he even saw them. The shadows outside split apart. Through the storm, 3 figures stepped into view. They were taller, broader, their bodies armored in dark bone plates that shimmered under the lightning. Their eyes burned brighter than the scouts, glowing with cold purpose. Each of them carried long blades that looked grown, not forged bone fused with flesh. "Hunters," Lyra whispered. Her voice trembled, but her stance was firm. "They will not leave until one of us is dead." David swallowed hard. "Then it won't be me." The first hunter struck without warning. It moved with terrifying speed, bursting through the broken door in a flash of claws and blade. David fired, the rifle booming in the small cabin. The bullet hit the creature square in the chest, but instead of dropping, it only staggered, roaring in fury. David cursed. "It shrugged that off." Lyra stepped forward, her palms glowing with faint silver light. "They are built to survive. Human weapons. But with me," she thrust her hand toward the hunter. A wave of energy shot out, crackling like lightning, and slammed into its chest. The beast shrieked, smoke rising from its armor. David's eyes widened. "You could do that? This whole time?" Her voice was sharp. "Every use of power makes it easier for them to track me. That's why I needed you." Before David could respond, the second hunter crashed through the window, shards of glass exploding across the room. It lunged for him, blade flashing. David rolled aside, faster than he thought possible, and fired point blank. This time, his shot tore into the creature's throat, and it collapsed in a spray of dark blood. He stood there panting, stunned at his own speed. "What the hell did you do to me?" Lyra didn't look at him. She was too busy facing the third hunter, who circled them slowly, its glowing eyes fixed on her. "I didn't change you," she said. "I revealed you." The strength was always inside. Humans just don't see it until they're forced to. The words barely registered before the first hunter, still alive despite its wounds, roared and charged again. David braced, rifle up, but the weapon clicked empty. Damn it! The hunter swung its bone blade. David blocked with the rifle, wood splintering under the force. He stumbled back, the creature towering over him. Its clawed hand shot forward, aimed for his throat, and then Lyra moved. Faster than his eyes could follow, she caught the hunter's arm with both hands. Energy flared from her palms, burning straight through its armor. The hunter screamed, thrashing wildly, until finally it collapsed, its chest smoking. David caught his breath, staring at her. "You saved me." She turned to him, her glowing eyes unreadable. "No, we saved each other. That's the bond." But there was no time to speak more. The last hunter finally attacked. It was different from the others, smarter. Its movements were precise, calculated. It didn't charge blindly. It circled them, striking fast and pulling back, testing their defenses. David felt sweat dripping down his neck. "It's playing with us." Lyra nodded grimly. "It wants us tired. We can't let that happen." The hunter lunged again, its blade flashing. David dodged, but not fast enough. The tip cut across his arm, burning like fire. He hissed in pain, stumbling back. At the same moment, Lyra clutched her own arm, gasping, though she hadn't been touched. David's eyes widened. "Our lives are tied. When I'm hurt, you're hurt too." "Yes," she said through clenched teeth. "Which is why you cannot fall." The hunter came again. This time David didn't retreat. He stepped into its strike, grabbing its arm with both hands. For a second, he felt raw power surge through him, the bond burning bright. His muscles tightened with strength he didn't know he had. With a roar, he twisted, Snapping the creature's arm like dry wood. It howled, staggering back. "Now, David!" Lyra shouted. David didn't hesitate. He grabbed the broken rifle, drove the jagged end forward, and plunged it straight into the hunter's glowing eye. The beast shrieked once, then fell silent, collapsing into the dirt. The storm raged outside. The cabin was in ruins. Broken glass and dark blood stained the floor. David stood in the wreckage, chest heaving, his arm burning from the cut. Lyra approached slowly, her hand brushing against his. "You fought like one of us." David shook his head. "No, I fought like a man who had no choice." She tilted her head, a strange light in her eyes. "That's exactly why you are dangerous." He looked at her, confusion mixing with anger. "Dangerous to them, or to you?" Lyra didn't answer. Instead, she turned toward the door, staring into the storm. David followed her gaze. Out there, beyond the rain and trees, more shadows moved. Dozens, maybe hundreds. The hunters were only the beginning. The cabin was silent now, except for the storm's howl and the crackle of dying fire. Broken wood, shattered glass, and dark blood painted the floor. David stood there, chest heaving, his rifle broken in his hands. His arm throbbed where the hunter's blade had cut him. Lyra's breath was uneven, her silver eyes glowing faintly. She had fought beside him, saved him, and bound her life to his. But still, David couldn't shake the question burning in his mind. He turned to her sharply. "You knew this would happen, didn't you?" Lyra met his gaze. Her lips pressed into a thin line, as if she carried a weight too heavy to share. "Yes." David's jaw clenched. "And yet you came to my door. You dragged them here. You dragged me into this war." Her voice was soft but firm. "You opened the door. You chose this bond. I didn't force you." Anger flared in David's chest, but he pushed it down. "No more riddles, Lyra. I deserve the truth. Who are you? Why are they after you?" For a long moment, she didn't answer. She walked slowly toward the shattered window, staring out into the storm. Lightning flashed, illuminating her pale skin, her silver hair, her scars. When she finally spoke, her voice carried both pride and sorrow. "My name is not just Lyra," she said. "On my world, I was known as Lyra Vale, the last daughter of the Vale Dominion. My people, they called me Princess." David's chest tightened. A princess? He almost laughed at the absurdity, but the weight in her voice told him she wasn't lying. "Your royalty?" he asked, disbelief sharp in his tone. Lyra turned back to him, her eyes burning. "I was, but not anymore. I was born to rule. Yet I refused their chains. My family wanted me to be their weapon. They carved power into me, etched it into my veins until I was no longer their child, only their tool." She lifted her arm, and for a moment, the veins beneath her skin glowed with silver fire. David could see it now, the scars, the marks not of battle but of design. She wasn't just an alien, she was engineered. "They created me to lead their armies," she said. "But I escaped. I would rather be hunted than be the cause of countless deaths." David stared, struggling to process her words. "So these hunters, they're not just killers. They're your people's dogs, sent to drag you back." Lyra nodded slowly. "Or to kill me if I resist." Silence hung between them. The fire snapped, casting fleeting shadows across the cabin walls. David's mind raced. A fugitive princess. A living weapon. And now her fate was tied to his. Finally he spoke. "So what happens now? If you're a princess, won't they keep coming until they find you?" Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed her fear. "Yes, they will never stop." David clenched his fists. "Then why bind yourself to me? You could have hidden anywhere in this world. Why drag me into this?" Lyra stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Because you are human. And humans are the one thing my people cannot control. They fear you, not for your weapons, not for your armies, but for your will. You fight even when you know you cannot win. That is why I chose you." David swallowed hard. Her words cut deep. He had lived a quiet life, far from battles, far from wars. Yet she spoke of him as if he carried something greater, something more, but then his eyes narrowed. "And what if I say I never wanted this? What if I tell you to leave?" Lyra's expression faltered, just for a moment. Then she said softly, "Then both of us will die. Our lives are bound now. My death is yours. Your death is mine." The truth hit him like a hammer. There was no undoing this. No walking away. Before he could respond, a new sound drifted through the storm. Not claws, not howls, a hum. Low at first, then rising, shaking the ground. David froze. Lyra's face went pale. "What is that?" he asked out. Her voice cracked, fear lacing every word. "They've sent a ship." David's stomach dropped. A ship. That meant more than hunters. That meant soldiers. Maybe an army. Lyra gripped his arm, her nails digging into his skin. "You must understand, if they take me, they will take you too. They will learn of Earth. They will burn this world." The hum grew louder, filling the air with vibration. Outside, the storm lit up with strange lights moving through the clouds. David's chest heaved. He had wanted the truth. Now he had it. Lyra wasn't just some fugitive. She was a royal exile carrying a secret that could doom not just him, but the entire planet. He looked at her, and for the first time, he didn't just see fear in her eyes. He saw guilt, regret, and something else, something almost human. "Should have left me out of this," he muttered. Lyra shook her head. "No, David, you are part of this now, and together. We might be the only chance your world has." Lightning split the sky. The hum turned into a roar. The night was no longer just a storm. It was an invasion. The roar above shook the earth. David staggered to the shattered doorway, staring out into the storm. Through the clouds, a dark shape descended, massive, alien, its hull glowing with streaks of blue light. It wasn't just a ship. It was a fortress in the sky. Rain poured harder, lightning striking across its surface. The hum grew louder, pressing into David's chest until he could barely breathe. Lyra stood beside him, her silver eyes fixed on the craft. Her face was pale, her lips tight. "They've brought the war here," she whispered. "For me," David's throat tightened. "Then we run, we hide." Lyra shook her head. "There's no running from them. Once they've found me, they won't stop. Not until one of us is gone." The ship's underside cracked open. Beams of light swept across the forest, searching. Shadows moved within the glow-armored soldiers, descending like predators. David felt his gut twist. This was no longer about one alien woman seeking shelter. This was about survival, not just his, not just hers, but the entire world's. He turned sharply to her. "Tell me the truth. Can we fight them? Or is this suicide?" Lyra looked at him, and for once her eyes were not burning with pride or mystery. They were soft, vulnerable. "Alone? No, but with you. Maybe our bond gives you what no human should have. And if I release everything inside me, if I give you all of it, together we might stand a chance." David clenched his fists. "What's the catch?" Her voice dropped to a whisper. "If I give you all of me, there will be nothing left. I will burn out. You will live, but I will be gone." The words hit him harder than the storm outside. Gone. She had been in his life for less than a night. Yet already, the thought of losing her cut deeper than he wanted to admit. "You'd die for me?" he asked. Lyra's lips curved into a sad smile. "I would die to keep you alive. You let me stay human. No one else ever would." A beam of light swept across the cabin, burning white through the rain. The enemy was closing in. David's mind spun. He had two choices: accept her sacrifice, take her power, and maybe survive the night, but lose her forever. or reject it, fight by her side as she was, and risk both their lives against impossible odds. Lyra stepped closer, her hand brushing his chest where her essence had already burned its mark. Choose, David. Let me give you what no woman ever could. Or keep me and face death with me. His heart pounded. Every instinct screamed to fight, to survive. Yet when he looked at her, drenched in firelight and storm, he couldn't imagine. This cabin, this life without her in it. The sound of boots and claws hit the ground outside. The soldiers were here. Shadows swarmed, their weapons glowing in the rain. David grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. No, I won't. Let you die for me. We fight together. If we fall side by side. For a heartbeat, she only stared at him. Then her lips parted, and a single tear stains and silver slid down her cheek. You're a fool, she whispered. David smirked grimly. So I've been told. The cabin shook as the first soldiers reached the door. Lyra raised her hands, silver energy flaring brighter than before. David lifted his broken rifle like a blade, the storm's roar filling his veins. Outside, the alien army closed in. Inside, man and alien stood shoulder to shoulder, bound by fate, by fire, by something deeper than either had expected. Lyra's voice echoed through the cabin, steady and fierce. Then let them come. The door burst open, light and shadow poured in. David's eyes locked with hers one last time before the battle swallowed them both. And in that final breath of calm before chaos, he understood her promise at last. She hadn't offered him desire. She hadn't offered him pleasure. She had offered him a destiny no human woman ever could. The night erupted into war.